Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host Manuj Aggarwal, and today we'll be talking with Russell Dalgleish. So, Russell, as one of the most connected Scottish industry leaders, he's a high-profile influencer, connector, and serial entrepreneur. He has been a member of the advisory board of the Scottish government's Digital Directorate, CivTech. He has also been Scottish expert champion pro bono mentor for the Scottish Enterprise and a non-executive director for MBN Solutions. Russell is also the national director for Global Entrepreneurship Network, aka GEN. He is the founding managing partner of the advisory group Exalta Capital Partners and an angel investor. In his early career, Russell has held board leadership positions with international companies achieving a turnover of above 200 million British pounds, regularly appearing on the list of top 100 most influential entrepreneurs. Russell was also recently named as on the Maserati 100, a list of Britain's business leaders doing the most to promote and support the next generation of entrepreneurs. Today, Russell sits on the board of 10 companies and organizations, including Institute of Directors Scotland, Startedin, and ScotlandIS. He is an active member of Merchant Company of Edinburgh, Asian Scotland Institute, and supporter of organizations championing female business leaders, changing the chemistry and association of Scottish businesswomen. Russell believes that there is untapped potential within Scottish businesses, which can be realized by encouraging an increase in international business and export. His passion for this subject was recognized by the British government, who has appointed him to the Scottish Board of Trade. As an experienced speaker, Russell has delivered entrepreneur focused events in Abu Dhabi, Edinburgh, Hong Kong, London, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Shenzhen, and his success has been commemorated in several ways, but most notably by sculptor Anthony Gormley. He was turned into a living statue, fully kilted on a plinth in Trafalgar Square for charity. That's amazing, Russell. Welcome.
Wow! Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah. We have had you on the podcast earlier as well, but that was under different circumstances, and now things have rapidly changed, and you're doing some new things since last time we spoke. So, can you give us some sort of an update how things are unfolding for you, especially in 2020? How are things changing?
It's been a very remarkable year. I think the most important thing for me is that my family are all safe, because this has been a health emergency, so we focused on that as the priority. In business sense, I've been very fortunate because I exist in this world of disruption. So because of the restrictions put in place due to the outbreak of COVID, a lot of business practices and standard ways of working have changed. So I've been able to take advantage of that. So, for example, doing things like this and having the opportunity to meet with you. But if I was to give you an example of my day today. So my day started at 7 a.m. in Singapore. So I was doing calls into Singapore then, and then I've slowly worked my way across the world. So Singapore, and then to Bangalore, to Amsterdam, a number of work in the UK. And then we did a call into Washington earlier. I've just finished a call with a potential new SBN member, a Scottish Business Network member in Minnesota. And now I'm here today in, is that Vancouver now?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So that's how my life has changed. Now I've done all of that without having to leave my office.
Awesome.
And my office is in the garden. So I'm very fortunate. And that's an acute change in our world that didn't happen before. A number of the people I have spoken to, I did not know when we last spoke.
Yeah.
That's our world today.
That's very, very interesting. So on one side, people are socially distancing and sort of, distancing, and they're not sort of, they're missing the human connection. And on the flip side, we are also adopting technology and sort of connecting with each other more frequently. And do you think that everybody is sort of adopting this change equally well, or some people are struggling, or some people are not adopting this? What is your take on things?
I think we can see a lot of differences across the world. So there was a statement made that COVID was a great leveler. Now, in one sense, it is because it affects all human beings. So in that sense, the 7 or 8 billion on the planet are affected in the same way. But we have to look at people's conditions as well, and living experience and economic capability. So this isn't the same. So for me, middle class in the UK, living in the country, strong broadband connectivity, a large network, I'm in a very comfortable position. But for people who lack access to technology, it's a great drawback. But if you look at what I see, which is, as human beings, we live in a world of continual change. And for a lot of us, we've forgotten that. So if I look at friends in Iraq, for example, or in Croatia a few years ago, they noticed incredible changes in their country due to war. Now, what we're noticing isn't war, but we are noticing change that we didn't expect. And I think for a lot of us, we're finding it really difficult to adjust to the fact that when people talk about the new normal is today. Whatever is happening today is what we've got to work with. So for all entrepreneurs out there, I say grab the moment now. If there's a website you're going to launch it now. If you're going to go and do a deal, do it now. If you're going to hire someone, do it now. Don't wait for some mythical date in the future when the world will change. Now is the time. It doesn't matter if this is the week of Christmas. Do it now.
No, that's a very good point. And one thing that you mentioned here, which is the new normal, and I hear that phrase all the time. What is the new normal, or in some cases, are we going to go back to normal? So, in your opinion, what does this new normal look like? Like, are we going to be working remotely all the time? Is the sort of the old way of working not going to be valid anymore? What is your opinion on that?
I think it'll be different for different peoples working in different areas and in different sectors. But if we look at the kind of people I work with, they have embraced the change to see how it can be advantageous for them. So if we imagine, I've got a friend who is an independent retailer. So as an independent retailer, he has a physical location where he would sell product. His product is memorabilia from the 60s and 70s. So he has seen a huge hit because he's had to have his retail establishment closed. On the other hand, he has got heavily involved in online sales and developing a community who love his products. And he is selling products online for a higher price and a higher margin than he was in his store. And he's found it a very pleasing experience. So we would say, I wouldn't say he's pivoted, I would say he's changed his channel. And that's an example of what we've got to do. We've got to think differently because our world is different. And for entrepreneurs, this is a great time. If I was running a $500 million corporation, this would be a really tough time because I'd have all these staff to worry about. In effect, a large corporation, you can think of it as a large machine. So as a machine, you turn the handle and it creates money. That's what it does. So when change happens, they have to change the machine, which is really expensive. Whereas for small entrepreneurs, we can look for opportunities. We can look for problems we can help with. We can look at ways to work with other people. And what's happened now is that our geographical market has been transformed. So my market may have been Scotland, or it may have been the UK, but suddenly, why don't I sell something to you in Vancouver? Why don't I deliver a service in Bangalore? I can now do a lot of those things that perhaps I couldn't do before. And the second lesson is the cost of business, particularly international business, for many of us has fallen because historically, for you and I to do a deal, we would say we have to meet. So I have to pay $2,000 to fly to Vancouver, to spend $500 a night to stay there, to then fly back. It would be a wonderful experience, but what would we do today? We would shake hands on a deal digitally. So that's a change.
No, that's great. And so, a lot. I was just going to mention that we are not able to congregate physically, and I think in some cases that may be a really good thing, as you said. Like, things happen fast, and we don't need to like physically meet, and we can reduce our expenses. Uh, but what are some of the new types of paradigms that people ought to be adopting? Like, meeting people online is great, and you are really big into networking, you're really big into connecting with a lot of people. What can some other people do who, I mean, meeting new people in the physical world is hard enough. You go to events and things of that nature, and you're lost there. There are thousands of people. Who do you talk to? What do you talk about? And now in the virtual world, it's even a new paradigm. So are there any tips or tricks you can share? How do you build your network? How do you meet people? How do you grow your community online?
To me, you've got to be brave.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to decide that you physically have to do something.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what I did this year.
Mm-hmm.
So from the end of March, when the UK started to close down,
Yeah.
I had to decide, how was I going to generate business? How was I going to generate activity? Because if I sat here and didn't do anything, nothing would happen. I perhaps I'll get myself a jigsaw and I'll sit here and I'll do my jigsaw in isolation. But I didn't want that. I wanted to be involved.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do was I sent 30 messages a day to my first connections on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's my major social media platform. So what I decided to do was I would send a message to 30 people who were first connections, but I would not think of them as someone I knew or didn't know. I would think of them as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, "Hi, Jeff, how are you doing today? Hope everything is safe with you. Is there anything I can do to help?"
Yeah.
So every day I sent 30 of those messages. And what happened was the majority were ignored, but some people came back. Now, what happened was some of those people I may not know, or I may have connected with them 9 years ago at a conference. I've never spoken since. So some people came back and they said, "Oh, I'm okay. How are you?" Some people came back and said, "Russell, we're trying to think of how to do something. So perhaps to bring a community together." And I would say, "Well, why don't we get a call going and perhaps I could present at that event?"
Mm-hmm.
So we go on to the call and then we start using Zoom, which we hadn't really used much before. So we have to get used to it. So we start talking over Zoom. And I was told, "Well, could you speak at this event or speak at that event?" And I'd said, "Yes, I am prepared to do this. I haven't been trained in presenting on Zoom, but I'll give it a go." And what happened was I got better at it, and I got feedback to people to say that I was helping them, and that was good. And some of the people I helped have then turned into commercial opportunities and business positions. So I currently sit on the board of at least one company, but I've never met any of the staff in the physical world. But we've developed trust and we've developed a working relationship. And this is the key, is working out how to develop trust when you can't physically meet someone. And if you think about it, developing trust, even if you and I met in a bar, we still don't know each other. So it's the same process. So what I do is I donate my time for free to work with someone, to slowly build up a relationship, and then look to see if can I help them to move their business forward? Do they think it's valuable enough to commercially reward me for that? So that's what I did. Now, when it comes to new people, I'm just open to meeting people. But I start from the premise not of, "Hi, can I sell you something?" I start from the premise of, "Hi, can I help?" So you reached out to me initially and asked me to take part in a podcast. So I had to think about what was the risk to me if I took part in your podcast. Well, it's probably going to be a little risk. No one might watch it. It doesn't matter. But we got on very well. So when you asked me to return, I was delighted to do that. And you develop trust by making it a really easy experience for me, and you engaged. So if you're out there at the moment, reach out to people, offer to help, and then you will understand how you can generate a commercial opportunity from that.
That's a great blueprint for anybody to grow their business, start a business, get a job. So thank you so much for going into that detail. I think that sort of summarizes a lot of what entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders should be doing with their time. So thank you so much for that. Now, you mentioned when you started giving that answer, you need to be brave. I think that is the key here. Being brave and looking for new ways, not being afraid of new ideas, new ways of doing things. And then towards the end, you mentioned that focus on helping others. So first of all, let's peel that off. Like, where did you get that sentiment from? Because this is a dog eat dog world out there, and most people are not taught that way. Most people are taught to be, participating in that dog eat dog world where, it's a zero sum game. So how did that shift in your mindset come about?
I suppose over the last 20 years in particular, I've looked at the way that we develop, and my interest is business. That's what interests me. So I've tried to see how best to work with new businesses. So 10 years ago, I would have called you and said, I think I can help you. Please sign a contract with me and we'll work together, and go on, sign the contract, and we'll reduce the price a bit. We'll do this stuff. So I would have been quite aggressive in actually approaching an opportunity. And what I discovered was every single deal I secured, because I'm a good salesman, didn't generate as much value.
I see.
What generated value was when someone came to me and said, Russell, can you help me with this? And I didn't look for a financial reward. I simply helped. So I think it's been that lesson I've learned. And then as I started to develop a non-profit in Scottish Business Network, I had no money. So I had to ask for favors from people. And I discovered that if you were good to people, they would be good back again. And it's just been incredible. I now run a global organization. I've got 16 ambassadors around the world. I've got a global network of 10,000 people who all help each other. And it's because of my lesson of trying to help. But I also got it because I watched Simon Sinek's first video. And it was about, what is your why? So my why isn't to be a strategy consultant. My why is to help people. So I started to change my branding and my language all round about helping. So if you look at my LinkedIn profile, it will say that my purpose is to help. Now, people will say to me, but how can you make money doing that? Don't you get inundated with requests? Don't you waste a lot of time? I'm going, well, I know how to say no. Sometimes it might take me a couple of months to respond to an email because I'm busy and I'm prioritizing, but I will always try to help. And I think helping is a key message from 2020 because we need to help each other. So many people have helped me. I've reached out to them and they've said, oh, Russell, I advise you to do this or don't do that. And it's also, it's just a great feeling.
True. I can attest to that. I had similar epiphanies where earlier it used to be more like, okay, let's get the contract signed, let's get the payment in, and now it's different. And as you found, I am very surprised. I mean, not surprised because from childhood we are taught, hey, help each other. I'm surprised that when you start giving things away for free, your expertise away for free, it actually comes back manifold, like much more than when you were like focusing on the contracts and the payments.
You're absolutely correct. So I did a call earlier today, and the gentleman was in New York, and he'd responded to one of my LinkedIn posts, and I'd said to him, and he said, no, maybe we should have a chat. That was the entire premise. Was I gave up 20 minutes of my time for a chat. And during that chat, he shared 3 things with me, which will probably change the strategy for Scottish Business Network next year. Because he came up with some ideas I hadn't thought of. Now, all it was 2 friends having a discussion, and I'm going to ask him to join us in what we're trying to do, and we'll get closer as friends. But as human beings, we want to help. The problem that I notice an awful lot with entrepreneurs is they don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
because we're brought up, I think particularly, I'm a man, so I can only view it from that
Yeah.
perspective, but as a weakness to ask for help.
Yeah.
So for me to turn to you, Manuj, and say, oh, can you help me?
Yeah.
That would be some weakness on my part.
Mhm.
So I've managed to remove that from my psyche. And I understand that by asking for help, I probably help you as well.
Yeah. No, that's true. And the other thing is like one thing I notice is that if you help somebody like person A, uh, even if you don't get anything back from person A, you may get it from person B, right? So it's a merry-go-round of people helping other people.
It is, and the strangest things happen as well. So I was raising money for a charity in Delhi. It was for a young lady, amazing young lady who does. She supports young girls living in slum conditions, and I decided to run and raise some money for her. And I got an email from a gentleman in Bangalore who said that he would like to support me in what I was doing. So we came up with the idea that he would run 10 kilometers and then pass a virtual baton to me in Scotland, and I would run 10 kilometers.
Awesome.
So we got that. There was great fun, and we raised a bit of money. But his background was that he'd worked in Scotland and worked with Scottish companies. So he was appointed last week as our ambassador to Bangalore.
Oh, nice.
And he's been fantastic in helping us. So it's also being opportunistic about trying to, but you also have to understand people. So if you think about someone's personal conditions, that can affect how you work with them. So if I'm working with someone who is a young mum with 3 children aged under 5, she's probably not got the time to do this because she's got a lot of, or a young work to do working with the children. So you got to think about that. So the type of people I'm working with have got a stability in their life. So that makes it easier as well because they have the time to do that.
Yeah, that's great. And so, you are championing a lot of different folks. You're championing Scottish businesses. You're championing female entrepreneurs. So can you talk about that first of all? What is that passion? Where is that coming from? And what is it that you want to achieve by supporting Scottish businesses, by supporting female entrepreneurs?
So I've spent my life working away from Scotland. So when you work away from your home country, you tend to feel slightly closer to it because you're identified as being something. So I'm identified as being Scottish. But really, it's not. My work with Scottish Business Network is more about meeting an unmet market need rather than it's a passion. So I'm not madly passionately Scottish. I've seen this market opportunity whereby I can help Scottish companies by connecting them with the diaspora. So that's a market opportunity. The female entrepreneur one's really interesting. So I put on an event 2 years ago, and though I think we had during the whole conference, 65% of the speakers were men and 35% were women. But one of the panels we had 4 men on it. And someone wrote to me and said that they were very disappointed that I'd put on a panel just with men. And I took that very seriously. And I had to look and see, was I doing enough to help encourage a more gender equal work in what I was doing? And I adjusted what I was doing to try to do that. So, and I did it by doing simple things. So if I got a connection request from a man and a woman and they were both exactly the same and everything they did, I'll accept the one from the lady. And it's the same with people from different ethnicity or different parts of the world. So I just make a personal decision to try to help. And I think it's important because if you think about the opposite of it, that's really bad. Making decisions on people's gender or on people's nationality, that's a bad way to live your life. So that's why I did it. And it's someone said to me it's really difficult getting women perhaps to speak at events. So we put an event on St. Andrew's Day on the 30th of November where the majority of the speakers were female. And someone said to me, how did you do that? And I said, I asked them. But
Yeah.
probably the bit that's missing is the fact that I did a lot of work in the background to try
Yeah,
to.
of course. Yeah.
And I'm Scottish. We treat everyone the same.
Uh-huh.
That's it. It's a natural way that we were brought up.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I mean, I've had a good run on this podcast, and most of my guests are males. That's something that I always try to balance out, but it's kind of difficult. So if you have any female entrepreneurs who like to come on, I will welcome them.
Well, I will nominate 3 tomorrow for you. I'll make
Okay,
introductions for you tomorrow. So I will introduce you to stunning entrepreneurs who are doing. There's one lady, Karen, who does Angel's Share glassware, which is beautiful glassware with whiskey inside it.
Right.
But she's a passionate salesperson entrepreneur that doesn't see herself like that. She thinks nothing of knocking on the door and asking for the business.
And
also some technology entrepreneurs. And we have a wonderful lady who runs a business here that makes rum in Scotland, the home of whiskey, and she's making rum.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think we can all do that.
Amazing. Yeah. So you have this diaspora. You work with thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs around the world. And as we are going through this, we already talked about all the changes that are coming, all the adjustments people having to make. What are some of the key challenges that people are facing, in your point of view, in adjusting to this new normal? What are the things that they're finding hard, or they're not able to adopt in their belief system, in their workings? What are some of the common things you're seeing?
I think it's important that we don't see the world as a challenge. Mm-hmm. We try to see the world as full of opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, you can be in horrible situations, and that can be difficult to do. But if you think about the fact that you're running a bit, so I'm going to launch a new business next year, mm-hmm. because, well, why not? I've got time to think about it, and I've identified a simple gap in the market. Now, how did I do that? Mm-hmm. So I did research by listening to people and asking. This was on the subject of coaching. Mm-hmm. So there was a particular type of coaching that people regularly asked me for help with. Mm-hmm. And it was about being held accountable. So people would say, well, sorry, I was late doing that. Oh, I forgot to do that, or I didn't get that done. It would be great if someone could help me with that. Now, I was, because of my time, I was too expensive to work with them all individually as a coach. So we've come up with a model, which I believe will work to help them, whereby they have someone who's holding them accountable. Now, it's a really simple model. But so I analyzed from the market that there was an opportunity for this. So I had an idea. I then did some research to see who else did it, right? So I kind of understand this now. I then modeled out a way of delivering the service whereby it wouldn't eat my time. So it wasn't dependent on me. I then identified what was missing from the company. So I found an individual who's incredibly good at using email marketing tools. So I went to him and I said, look, I'm going to build this business, but I've got no money. Mm-hmm. So I would like to offer you part of this business if you will come in and you will deliver all the email marketing, and then we'll split any profits that happen. Mm-hmm. And he was delighted to do that. So suddenly I've got a business. Now, before I launch the business, I can write a sales and marketing plan, but more importantly, I need a business plan. And writing a business plan is incredibly valuable. It's not because of the final document. It's because of the thinking process you go through. Mm-hmm. And then you go, oh, that might not work, or I'll do that. I then work with the third person in my group, who is a fantastic chief financial officer. So as a CFO, he will map out over the next couple of weeks the first 2 years trading. Now, why that's important is we can then see how we're getting on to see if we're actually hitting the targets we set. And it's not just commercial targets. It might be a number of new customers, number of engagements. So to me, this is how you deal with the new normal. You do research. You come up with an idea, you build the plan, and then you execute. But you don't assume that the next 2 years will be as in the plan. So I will assume that on day 2 of the company, something will happen and we'll maybe tweak it a little bit or change it a little bit. So people ask me things about pricing. So I've kind of got an idea where the pricing should be. When I launch, I'll have a discount so certain people can come in for less money, so we get started.
Yeah.
And then I measure and measure and measure to see how the business is developing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the key criteria is it mustn't take too much of my time. Because if the business ends up being dependent on me, it's never going to grow because there's only one of me. So we have to build it out there. And that to me is how you deal with the new. You do the analysis and look for the opportunity.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's again, once again, you've described that process in detail. So thank you so much. Are you seeing anybody facing challenges like isolation, loneliness? Because we're sitting at home. Some people want to work in team environment where they're physically located, or adoption of technology. Some people may not be as well versed with technology. Are you seeing any of those kind of challenges?
I think both of those challenges. So I think we talk about mental illness and mental well-being, but I think we have to focus more on what we actually mean. And I think you've given two brilliant examples there. So a lot of people are lonely.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are struggling with the technology. So I know a lot of people who don't like doing Zoom because they can see a picture of themselves.
Yeah.
And I completely get that.
Yeah.
So, and also you get a lot of people who are not, like I was trained as a technologist. I love playing with it, see how it works. So they're not in that position. So what I say is write the plan and decide what you need to do. So you get someone in who can help you with the technology, right? You can give it to a company, you can hire a young person, you can do whatever you like. You can use Fiverr, get someone to do it on Fiverr for you.
Exactly.
So you can do those things. But the subject of loneliness, this is where we have to be reaching out. So if we're reaching out to people, because I wrote about this last week, just that one conversation, that one lending an ear, that's what people need. And that might just encourage them to come out a bit. And someone said to me, do you get Zoom tired? I said, no, because most of the time I'm on the telephone. Because I don't have to do it by Zoom. There's no rule that says you have to be able to see me to talk.
Exactly.
I can do it by telephone. But I think you've hit a really good point there. I think loneliness must be getting really bad for people. So why doesn't everyone who's watching this reach out to 10 people you haven't spoken to for over 6 months and just drop them a note and say, hi, I was thinking about you.
No, that's a really, really good advice. And I think everybody should follow it, especially, even if you're intimidated by technology, like, as you said, LinkedIn, email, WhatsApp, even a phone call is enough. And that gets the ball moving in the right direction. So thank you so much, Russell. You once again, you have provided so much value in 30 minutes, and I hope people listen to the advice and they, not only listen, because as we all say as entrepreneurs, the difference is made when you take action. So please listen to that advice and take action and implement it, and let us know how it works out for you. Thank you so much, Russell. Now, how can people connect with you? If they want to connect with you, have a chat with you, how can they do that?
You can, the easiest way is through LinkedIn. So it's Russell Dalgleish, and just drop me a message.
Awesome. Great. We'll put that link in the show notes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuj. And thank you to your team as well. They've been very professional. Thank you.
Thank you.